So I guess it would be good morning since it's 12 a.m. Welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast. If you guys did stay up for this game tonight that did start at 9 o'clock, Pistons are going to be on a West Coast trip this week. They started off playing the Utah Jazz, the tanking Utah Jazz. They were without like all of their key contributors outside of Colin Sexton and Keontae George. Pistons were without Tobias Harris. He was out for personal reasons. Don't really know what's going on there, but if it is serious, hope he's doing okay. Isaiah Stewart was also out tonight with lower back contusion. Don't know if it's that same injury where he fell a few games ago, but he did not play in this game. But let's get into these quarter notes. And then, as always, we will open up the show to questions, comments, overall thoughts. So if you guys are watching live on YouTube right now, you want to leave a comment about tonight's game or just an overall thought, or maybe it's a Detroit Pistons question or a topic that you want me to talk about, just leave it down in the comment section below and we'll get to it after we're done reacting to these quarter notes. So one thing that I did notice right away is Cade did get 2 fouls, which that's not really a big deal. Just for the fact that JB trusts him not to get 3 fouls in the first, and he didn't. Just some of the fouls were just like ticky tacky, like he accidentally pulled on KJ Martin's jersey. It wasn't really a big deal, but Cade did his thing tonight. Had a really great night. Scoring the basketball, kind of a bounce back game. I know some people were kind of concerned if he was injured or not. Cade said post game, I guess last game that they had, it was more of a thing of we have to involve everybody, and I'm not really concerned with my scoring if I can affect the game in ways in which I'm distributing, I'm playing defense, and I'm being a good teammate. Cade's happy. And he almost scored 30 points tonight against a tanking Utah Jazz team. But just kind of wanted to ramble a little bit there. But getting back into these quarter notes, Jalen Duren, another great game. I feel like I come up here every post-game podcast as of late over the last 2 months, just praising the guy. Good rim protection tonight. I think he had 4 or 5 blocks, if I do remember correctly. I don't have the box score pulled up in front of me. Good rim protection. Defense was excellent in the first quarter from this team collectively. Holding the Jazz to only 21 points. Holding them, scoreless for a few minutes in the quarter was great. I do want to get into Dennis Schroeder because I was kind of holding my breath. So he got punched in the mouth by Cody Williams. It didn't look like it was intentional. I know the broadcast thought that he was concussed, but the more that their cameras pointed at the bench, looks like he just got his lip busted by Cody Williams. And you didn't really see Dennis Schroeder until very, very late in the third quarter. So it was a good sign that he came back out there. So Marcus Sasser did get a little bit of time with Dennis Schroeder being attended by the medical staff. But Pistons do end the first quarter with a 36-21 lead. Transitioning into the second quarter, it was the Paul Reed show. I mean, if we're being honest, no Isaiah Stewart. Paul Reed was unleashed tonight. The poster dunk, good Lord. And we'll probably talk about the dunks tonight. I believe the broadcast said that the Pistons collectively as a team had 15 dunks. And they read off some stat that the Pistons lead the league in dunks, which doesn't really surprise me now that I hear it. But, the Paul Reed poster, him having a good game, him and Cade were kind of, just vibing off each other, good chemistry there. But the starters really opened up this lead quickly. They almost dropped 70 points by halftime, and the offense was just firing on all cylinders. Everyone got involved tonight, and they had a 20-point lead going into halftime, 67-47. Coming out of halftime, Jalen Duren, it was his turn to get a poster on former Piston KJ Martin, not really a Piston, but if you know, during the trade deadline. The Pistons traded for him to reroute him to Utah so we could get Dennis Schroeder in that huge Jimmy Butler trade that we got involved in. But he put KJ Martin on a poster. Simone had a good game, had a bounce back game for him. Maybe he missed playing in Utah. The broadcast said that they went out to an Italian restaurant, the whole team, and Simone basically ordered for everyone. Maybe Simone was just missing some Italian food out in Utah, but good to see him have a bounce back game because I know he's really, really struggled this season. And I'm happy that, he had a good game offensively and he had a pretty nice block in the third quarter as well. At what point this was almost a 30-point lead by the Pistons. Utah, chipped it down to around 20 or so in the third. And to end the quarter, it was 98 to 77, almost dropping 100 points in three quarters. Is pretty damn good, if you ask me. Going into the fourth, Pistons were kind of playing with their food a little bit, taking their foot off the gas. Utah got within 15, and I think I was just like, you just have to put this game away. Don't let them, gain confidence. Don't let them try to get back into this game. And Kate Cunningham stepped up, and Malik Beasley, and Jalen Duren, and Asar Thompson, and they put this game away. They really just got this lead back up to 20 points again. They just couldn't be stopped offensively. They dropped 134 to 106 was the final score. Just a really good win. And this is a team that you're supposed to beat. You're supposed to beat a rebuilding Utah Jazz team without, I think it was over 6 or 7 guys that were out tonight for them. And it's March. It's March basketball. It's tanking season for a lot of these teams that are looking for ping pong balls this time of year. Utah is one of them. It's probably the easiest team that you're going to face this week. You got the Clippers, you got the Warriors, and the much improved Portland Trailblazers. So you get a very important win against a team that isn't really looking to win basketball games right now. But overall, was really impressed with tonight's win. Felt like a dunk contest because there was just so many poster dunks. Malik had a couple of dunks. Asar had some dunks. Jalen Duren had multiple dunks. It was just a really enjoyable basketball game if you guys did stay up for it. But I want to get into comments, questions, overall thoughts with you guys. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And then after we do come back, we'll answer any questions you guys have about tonight's Pistons victory over the Utah Jazz. We'll be right back, you guys. Okay, you guys, we're back. We're going to get into questions and comments. This is the part of the podcast where I open up the show for any of you guys that are watching live on YouTube right now and want to answer any questions. Technically, it is my birthday. I was born on March 4th. It is midnight. So I love that I'm doing a podcast on my birthday for you guys. But let's get into Alec Jasper's question about Paul Reed, or more of a comment, I should say. And it says Paul Reed has been a sneaky good addition to this team. I feel like he almost never gives bad minutes. Duran is on the verge of becoming an absolute problem. Cade is a legit top 10 player. I'm hyper. Alex, I appreciate this comment, man. And let's kind of dissect everything you said. I've been a very big Paul Reed advocate. The fact that he's your third string center is a luxury because I feel like he could be a backup center on a lot of NBA rosters right now. Just the way he plays, I like the way that he can hit a jump shot from the elbow area. He can spread the floor as well. He's a good passer, really good in the pick and rolls. Can protect the paint a little bit. Does like all the little things that don't really show up on the box score, but I do agree with you. Paul Reed has been a very good sneaky addition to this team. And, Philly waived him because they had to clear some cap, and the Pistons had cap space this summer, and they were willing to not only, pick up his non-guaranteed deal, but the Pistons waived him and reconstructed his deal for a vet's minimum for the remainder of the season and added some players at the trading deadline of Lindy Waters and Dennis Schroeder. So I love Paul Reed. This is a Paul Reed Stan account. I said that on Twitter. I have a lot of stock on Paul Reed. I do agree with you. It feels like he doesn't give up bad minutes. They're on the verge of becoming an absolute problem. Absolutely. Just the way he's been playing basketball for the last 2 months, like since you can even go like 2.5 months because we're in March now. Like he's really put it together. And I think that what's really clicked is a couple things. I think one, having Asar out there, um, covering a lot of ground, not only for Durham, but everyone on this basketball team, really gives them the luxury of knowing that he's going to be there. Much like how Tayshaun Prince used to have the go in the work Pistons back. Like he was just a Swiss Army knife. Asar's kind of like filling that same hole in terms of just being a really good team defender and helping out everyone around him. And I think the other thing that has really clicked for Duran is them putting the ball in his hands a little bit more, letting him bring the ball up the court, letting him initiate offense and DHOs. And you're starting to see him be more confident. I feel like every game he's just dunking the ball or trying to put someone on the poster. A lot more aggressive offensively. And we've all known the talent that he has offensively. He's always had a bag since his rookie year. Where the progress you're seeing right now is on the defensive end, where we saw some flashes his rookie year of like, possibly he could be that guy. But I think over the last 2.5 months, what you're seeing is more rim protection, more help side defense, more communication, being that team anchor. And you're right, he is becoming an absolute problem. I feel like every post game podcast with you guys, I'm always mentioning him. He's always in my post game notes because he's affecting the game on both ends of the floor. And you see what the potential possibly could be with him. He just turned 21 years old a couple of months ago. He is up for a contract extension. He's eligible for a contract extension. I'm sure we'll talk about that later in the podcast. I did see someone ask a question about that. But yeah, he is becoming an absolute problem. He's becoming a big X factor to this basketball team. And when you're getting that type of just consistency from him on a night-to-night basis, this is a very good basketball team. This is a basketball team that is tied currently with the Los Angeles Lakers in defensive rating since January 1st. The Detroit Pistons and the LA Lakers have the #1 defensive rating in the NBA. Like, think about that for a second. And the Lakers are playing good ball, so are the Pistons. They're better than Boston. They're better than OKC. Like, since January 1st. And it's just been a complete turnaround with this team and Jalen Duren. Ben, to get to your last comment, Cade is a legit top 10 player. When Cade is scoring and facilitating and defending and getting everyone involved, absolutely. He was in MVP, NBA ladder MVP talk last week. He was 9. And I know a lot of us, we always joke about the ESPN top 100 list of, he was the 67th best player. The Ringer had him top 40. He's making all NBA. I think we can just have that conversation. He's going to at least make an all NBA team. Don't know what team. I don't know if it's going to be first, second, or third. But the way he's playing, he's a top 15 player, top 10 player in the NBA right now. He's just doing it on both ends of the floor. He's being the leader. And he's a really big reason why the Pistons have had a resurgence this year and why they just are a playoff team currently, why they're a top 6 seed and trying to get to that 5th, possibly 4th seed right now. But like everyone you mentioned, Paul Reed, Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham had their fingerprints on this Pistons win tonight over the Utah Jazz. But Alex, always appreciate your comments on these post-game shows, man. And happy that you stayed up for this podcast. Want to get into Pistons sicko. He wants to know which Piston expiring contracts should they resign for next season. So we have a couple. So I think the obvious one is Malik Beasley, right? I want to move him over to the side. And the other two I want to talk about are Tim Hardaway Jr. and Paul Reed. I think when you look at it, you could have a conversation about Tim Hardaway Jr. And I know he's inconsistent if we're being fair. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's not, it's very noticeable, right? There's a price point I think this organization has what they're willing to possibly pay Tim to come back. Um, and I think if the number gets above a certain threshold of like which this front office wants to pay to keep him, they'll probably say thanks, Tim, but we just don't have the cap space right now. Like currently, I think he's making 16 million. I don't think the Pistons would be willing to pay that much. I just don't. Um, it's just a little bit too inconsistent, but he's a good vet. He's a positive voice in this locker room. I know a lot of reporters that I've talked to have always mentioned off camera how positive of a veteran that Tim Hardaway is, and a lot of the young guys look up to him, kind of like that vet to go to. So I think Tim, there's a price point for him, but I don't think it's going to exceed what he's currently making. I think it would kind of be like a team discount deal if they do want to bring him back. Paul Reed is interesting because it kind of depends what the Pistons want to do this offseason. Jalen Duren, obviously, we'll get into the contract extension. He's still under contract. He still has a rookie deal. Isaiah Stewart, his extension went into effect. He's still under contract. If you want to bring Paul Reed back, I think there's a conversation, definitely. He seems like he likes to be here. He's another guy that he might not have a consistent role, but when his number is called, he stays ready. I think there's a number there, but it just kind of depends on the price point, because Cade making All NBA is going to take away from the Pistons cap space. And you get to Malik Beasley, I think he's the easy answer to try to resign. I think a bulk of the Pistons cap space this summer will be going to resigning Malik Beasley on this basketball team. And I think a lot of you guys that are watching live would agree with that. You want to bring Malik Beasley back on the Detroit Pistons because you see the impact that he brings. He's probably one of the most consistent scorers next to Cade Cunningham. Tonight he started. Most nights he comes off the bench and really leads that second unit. And he's only 28 years old. So you could realistically give Malik a 3-year contract, maybe a 4-year contract. Not really sure how long the organization wants to keep him around, but like that's definitely a conversation. Malik has said multiple times he wants to be here. He wants to be a Piston for life. And I think Trajan probably really respects that about him, that he begged him not to trade him at the trading deadline, right? I would say Malik is probably priority one. Paul Reed and THJ, you at least, have a conversation about it, but you're not going to break the bank to keep them because, like, let's say like a team like Charlotte is offering these guys, big money to go play for, their team and their organization. Then you say like, hey, good luck, thank you for your service type of thing. But I think Malik would probably be priority one in my opinion, anyways. Pistons sickle, but I do appreciate the question. Not a comment from Jonathan. Would it be a disappointment if we lost in the first round this year? Jonathan, thank you for the question. No, it would not be a disappointment if the Pistons lost in the first round, and here's why. They haven't made the playoffs since 2018-19. And since then, they've rebuilded and they've struggled to win 20 games, right? Last year, especially, the other one 14. They're going to make the playoffs now, depending on who they face. Let's say it's the Knicks and they lose in the first round, and they give the Knicks a good battle. Hopefully they don't get swept. Let's say they win a game or two. That's progress. Them making the playoffs is huge progress. They're actually way farther ahead than JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon initially thought. If they lose in the first round of the playoffs, it would not be a disappointment in my eyes. I think making the play-in was kind of like the goal I set for them, uh, they're probably not going to be a play-in team. They're going to be a playoff team. They're going to be at least a top 6 seed, it looks like. Making the playoffs, I think, is a huge step in the right direction. I know some fans would maybe view it as a disappointment, but you kind of have to look at where they were at last year. 14 wins, 17 the year before. You're at 35 wins right now. You're probably going to win over 40 games this season, possibly, get up close to 45. Like, if you lose in the first round, it's not really a disappointment. I think the only thing that may be a disappointment is if you completely get swept. Like, I think a new goal I have for this team in the playoffs is at least get one game. At least try to win a game, because that's kind of been something that's looming over this organization. Like, they haven't won a playoff game in a long time. I think the last time they won a playoff game, I was still in high school, and that was a long time ago, you guys. But I don't really think it would be a disappointment if they did lose in the first round. They might upset a team because I think the way that they're playing, and I've been seeing a lot of Knicks fans talk about this. They said, imagine if the Pistons play the New York Knicks in the first round and the Knicks lose, because a lot of Knicks fans are like, the Pistons are such a team the Knicks would lose to in the first round. And I know a lot of Knicks fans don't want to see the Pistons in the playoffs because it's kind of like I guess, a thing with Knicks fans, which would be kind of funny, but you never really know it, especially just with the playoffs. Playoff basketball is completely different than regular season basketball, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know that. I appreciate all the happy birthday wishes we got from Debo, Drew Thomas, Janix. Appreciate you guys. But hey, man, I'm dedicated. I did miss the Brooklyn game because I did go to the game, so there was no post game podcast. I do apologize. I had a really late night, and then on Sunday I was a complete piece of crap. Like, I didn't do anything all day. Going to games just exhausts me. I just don't know what it is. I think it's just the atmosphere, and the atmosphere at LCA. Like, if you guys have not been to a game, I implore you guys, try to make it to a Piston home game. If you can. The energy is electric. That thing was almost sold out. It was a lot of fun. The crowd was into it. They booed Killian Hayes, which I was like, I guess, but it was a complete beatdown against the Brooklyn Nets. But hey, man, it was definitely a fun time. Re-signed Schroeder. I completely forgot about Dennis Schroeder. That's another guy. I know MK just put it on the screen with Dennis Schroeder. Yeah, you could have a conversation with Dennis Schroeder as well. I believe I've read somewhere that the Pistons do have his early bird right. So if the Pistons want to bring back Dennis Schroeder, they can. Trajan Langdon didn't mention that he's open to bringing back Dennis Schroeder. MK, thank you for pointing that out. I completely forgot that Dennis Schroeder was a free agent after this year. I think my brain is still kind of just like, when I think about contracts, I'm just thinking about Malik, Tim, and Paul. I didn't even think about Dennis Schroeder. Thank you for calling me out. I do appreciate that. But want to get into a couple more comments and questions with you guys. We got a comment from Frank. If the Pistons finish with the 4 seed, that would be one of the greatest turnaround in NBA history. You wouldn't be wrong there, Frank. I mean, going from like 15th place to 4th place in a year's time, JB Bickerstaff wins Coach of the Year, and it's not even close. You got National Pungent saying he should win, Coach of the Year, and I agree with that. Like, just the way he's got these boys playing right now, it's amazing. I think a lot of us that have supported this team through the good and bad times, we knew it was going to be a process, but just the way that they've developed under this new coaching staff is great. Like, I did not expect a turnaround this quick, and they're proving me wrong, and I love that. I love to be proven wrong. But yeah, if they finish the 4 seed, man, like that's crazy. The Pistons haven't been the 4 seed since probably the Go in the Work era. And like, JB should definitely get Coach of the Year if the Pistons finish, top 5 in my opinion. MK LCA is top 10 of attendance. Surprised me. That didn't really surprise me, because Last year, they were 13th in attendance. The year before that, they were 12th in attendance. LCA packs it in. Now, what a lot of people do, which, if you guys don't know, the middle seats are the most expensive seats in LCA. And there are some perks to sitting in the middle seats, especially if you buy seats in the Motor City Casino section, because if you do, you actually get like free food, which I definitely want to do one of these days. But the middle seats are always the most expensive seats, but even those seats were a majority through for the Brooklyn Nets on a Saturday night packed. But once you get a winning product, I mean, I'm sure you guys remember like the Palace of Auburn Hills, they like broke attendance records because the Pistons put a good product on the floor, right? Um, it's definitely good to see that Pistons fans are coming out and like I'm telling you guys, like we are going to be such an obnoxious team in the playoffs. We want to talk about Pistons fans talking crap. Like I went to that game on Saturday. I haven't seen energy like that in a long time from the fan base and in the city. Like just to get into the arena, had to wait a good 25, 30 minutes. And we got there about, I don't know, 40 minutes before tip off. So definitely make it out to a game if you guys haven't already. Just to experience, just the energy and everything like that. I do want to get back into a couple more comments and questions that you guys did leave. So let's get into this question from Janix because he did ask this one a while ago. I like how we don't lose pace when we have a back or I like how we don't lose pace when we have our back or of the bench in. I know you probably mistyped it, but I kind of get what you're saying. Um, the Pistons, for the first couple of months of the season, they did have issues closing out games if they did have a lead. But I think what really helped them in the beginning of the year is being in these games really close or blowing leads taught them how to close out games, right? Like tonight, they were up as much as 29 points and Utah got it within 15. They took a timeout and they're like, okay, you guys, let's finish this out. Let's close this out. And I think that's the benefit of like what happened in the beginning of the year with all those close games is they're starting to figure out how to close out these games and sustain a lead for a full 48. Now, obviously, Filipowski was going crazy from three, but the Pistons locked in and made sure that Utah did not have a chance to try to come back in the fourth quarter. Want to get into a comment from Debo. As of right now, what would you offer Jalen Duren for a contract extension? Great question. So I think when you look at Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey, they're both eligible for a rookie contract extension. Now, the Pistons could say, hey, we're going to see how you guys do for another year and not offer them anything. Like that could possibly happen. It's in their right to. And they would still be under a rookie contract for one more season, right? I think the way Jalen Duren has been playing for the last 2.5 months, you can offer him a 5-year deal, right? I would say I don't think $100 million is out of the question, especially the way that he's just turned it up. Like I don't think that's out of the question whatsoever. And I'm usually probably one of the worst people trying to predict contracts. I'm sure you guys remember last year, I thought Simone Fontecchio was getting $20 million. Yeah, I was an idiot. For Duren, it wouldn't surprise me if you see a 4 or 5-year contract extension, anywhere from 80 to $100 million for a player of his status, because like he's 21. Why not lock him down for the next 4 to 5 seasons? And you have a franchise center to build around with Cade Cunningham. Maybe some people don't agree with the 80 to $100 million over a 4 to 5 year span, but I think just the way he's playing and being that X factor, I could see that personally, Debo. But I could be wrong. I really could. Like again, I'm probably the worst person in the community to ask about contract extensions. That's not really my expertise. I know there's a lot of other people in the Detroit Pistons community that have a better pulse on this situation and these topics and discussions, but it wouldn't surprise me if JD got that type of money, though. This is a comment from Jonathan. How do you feel about Cade Cunningham? Most improved odds kind of seems bit uh a bit odd considering we always thought he was a star player. I've gone off on MIP awards because I feel like it's a broken award. I really do. MIP award to me, I always remember it being an award for a player that I'll use this analogy. They averaged 6 points and maybe they got up to 15 points a game, right? Like they averaged 6 points per game and they went up to 15 points a game. Cade Cunningham being the lead on favorite to win MIP, like I get it. Like, Laurie Markkinen won it a few years ago. John Morant won it, I believe. I think that's just where the award is. Personally, this is no hate or shade towards Cade. I would probably give it to Norman Powell um, because he's had a really good season. Just, taking my Piston hat off and just like, being a basketball fan that enjoys, other teams. I think Norman Powell has had a really good season with the Clippers. Obviously, we didn't get to see him play when the Pistons did play the Clippers in Detroit, but maybe we'll get a chance to. But I did see that he was injured, so maybe not. But I think the MIP for Cade is weird. I don't really think that he should be in MIP conversations. I just don't. But I think, the type of, honors that he could have is, he might get some votes for MVP. He's not going to win it, obviously, but he could get some votes. He's going to definitely be in conversations for All NBA because he's having an All NBA season. But yeah, the MIP thing was weird. I just don't agree with it. Um, I really don't. But hey, man, it's weird. It's really weird. What game this week you think we might lose? So let me look up the schedule this week because I don't remember off the top of my head. Um, so they have the Clippers on the 5th, the Warriors on the 8th, and Portland on the 9th on a back-to-back. Um, the two teams that I'm looking at that I think that are going to give them the most problems are the Warriors and the Trailblazers. Look, the Clippers, I will say the Clippers are a very good defensive team, and it's at home. The Warriors, because Jimmy Butler and the Warriors are playing much better basketball since he's gotten there. And the Trailblazers, I look at them, they're very improved since the last time we saw them. And if you guys remember, like we almost lost to the Blazers at home. It went down to the wire. These next three games against the Clippers, the Warriors, and the Trailblazers are all going to be games that probably go down to the wire, and you need everyone to step up. And I don't know when Tobias Harris is going to be back or Isaiah Stewart. But if we're without both of those guys for the remainder of this West Coast road trip, um, you're going to have to just have flawless performances from everybody like Cade, like Duran, like Malik. Tim's got to step up because we don't really know how long Tobias is going to be out with personal reasons or how long Stu's going to be out with a back contusion. But yeah, that West Coast trip's tough. It really is. You beat the easiest team, in my opinion, in the Utah Jazz. But if I had to guess, I think the Warriors give them probably the most trouble just because of Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. You can't sleep on those guys. I mean, they're one of the dynasties over the last like 5 years. Steph Curry is still Steph Curry. Jimmy Butler this time of year is a completely different player. Playoff Jimmy's a real thing. And, the Warriors, they really want to, climb up the Western Conference standings and, put some pressure on the other teams out there. So they're not going to be laying down whatsoever. But it'll be really interesting to see what does happen this week. I think the two teams that really I think I would worry about are the Blazers and the Warriors, in my opinion, but I could be wrong there. Watch them go 4-0 and win every game. You never really know with this team, man. This is the way they're vibing right now. I have a comment from James. Asar is special in how he creates quality space without being able to shoot. The lob threat, cutting, IQ are all off the charts. Yeah, just his basketball IQ, like you mentioned, James, is off the charts. The way he's able to pick his spots without being a perimeter threat, I think is what's really unique about him. I think putting the ball in his hands has really helped him about how he can get to the basket. The cutting, I think, is elite. Transition does really help him, find areas where he can score without being able to really shoot a whole lot of threes. But I do agree with you. Just the way he's been playing basketball, since they've been putting the ball in his hands and he's not standing in the corner, you're seeing an unlocked version of Asar Thompson, and I'm really happy about that. I do want to get into J2 element because we did see um, a a thing from Stephen A. Smith, and I see some people talking about the Suns, and we'll get to this. So I feel like this player is really polarizing with you guys, and I understand it. J2 said, "What up, bro? Just tuning in. Have you mentioned Devin Booker trade rumors yet? I haven't. We can get to this. So it's no surprise Phoenix has been struggling this season. They're probably going to miss the playoffs. And with the star power that they have with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, adding guys like Amante Morris and others, I thought they would at least, compete for the playoffs, but they just don't look like a basketball team that's having fun. And Mike Budenholzer is calling people out. Devin Booker had a really interesting post game, I think last week, and he sounded pissed off. Mike Budenholzer, I think, lost the locker room, and I think there's going to be a lot of changes with the front office and with players. Who knows what happens with Kevin Durant? I don't think he's going to be in Phoenix anymore. I think a lot of Pistons fans are looking at Devin Booker's situation and looking at, could the Pistons possibly put a package together for Devin Booker? Like, I'm not going to come up here and say that the Pistons don't have a shot at getting Devin Booker. I think anything is possible, and the Luka Doncic trade, I think, proved that because the Lakers are, I think they just went and tied for the second seed in the West right now. Anything's possible, right? I think if you're a Piston fan and you're looking at Devin Booker and you're looking at a possible trade, you're going to have tough conversations. You really are, because the Suns just aren't going to give Devin Booker up for nothing. I think what I would look at is people are going to say, well, you can't trade your pick. Well, the Pistons are probably going to lose their draft pick this year to Minnesota, and you should want that because you'll be able to trade first round picks after that protection conveys to Minnesota. So they'll have available first that they can trade in future trades, right? And I think that's what Phoenix would probably want, future first round picks and probably some young prospects. And you have young prospects on this team. You have a lot of young guys on this team from, Ron Holland, Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, Bobby Klittman, Marcus Sasser. Now, do they like any of those guys? Probably. But I think with Devin Booker, they're going to be very stubborn. If I had to guess, they try to move Beal before they move Booker. Unless Booker comes out and says, "I want out of Phoenix," I don't really think that Phoenix is going to trade him. I think they're going to do a retool and see what the problem is, and see how they can get back into the playoffs because they spent a lot of draft capital to get Kevin Durant, to get Bradley Beal, and it's not working. They think it's a coaching issue. I don't even know if it's a coaching issue. I think it's a players not meshing well and not getting along together issue. Um, and it kind of happened with the Brooklyn Nets. Like when Brooklyn had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, everyone was kind of crowning them as NBA champions, but it didn't. Nothing really came out of it. And I think the same thing is happening with Phoenix right now. Like these players just aren't meshing well together. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, obviously, I think they get along. I think the guy in the room that doesn't get along with everyone else in the locker room is Bradley Beal. And like he kind of like this season was pretty upset that he was coming off the bench. So I would keep an eye on Phoenix. The Devin Booker to the Detroit Pistons, I'll never say it can't happen, but I would assume the Suns, if they would even entertain a trade, they're probably asking for Cade Cunningham just to start the conversation. And I think we both know J2 element that's not going to happen, right? I look at other teams though across the NBA, like Houston has a crap load of picks and young prospects. OKC has a crap load of picks and young prospects. Those are the two teams in the Western Conference that I would look at. I think the only teams in the East that logically makes sense. Brooklyn has the picks, but I don't really think they're ready to contend right away. And it kind of feels like they're seeing what happens with Giannis in Milwaukee. I'd keep an eye on them. The other teams in the East I would look at, wouldn't really be surprised if you possibly see the Knicks at least be in the conversation, even though they don't have any picks. They do have a star-studded roster. Never count out the Boston Celtics. Even though they just won a championship, those top contending teams in the East are going to want to compete with Cleveland. Obviously, having Donovan Mitchell, but you never really know. You never know. Pistons have the young prospects. They just don't have the draft picks that a lot of these other organizations have, like the Nets, like OKC and Houston. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens, honestly. I know a lot of Pistons fans have always wanted Devin Booker to the Detroit Pistons, but I think it's just the draft capital thing right now. I really do. Got my guy Jeff Iafredi with the GOAT. Jeff, man, I'm surprised you're still up, brother. Shout out. I do want to get into a couple more comments and questions, then we'll probably wrap up this podcast, you guys. Got a comment from Drew Thomas. Would Malik Beasley's number of starts hurt his chances for sixth man of the year compared to Peyton Pritchard, who has none? It does. I don't remember the exact number where the cutoff is for sixth man of the year. I know I want to say it's like 10 or 15, but I'm probably wrong there. Don't quote me on that. It might hurt, but I don't really think, if Malik doesn't win sixth man of the year, he's not going to be too upset with it. But I know there's a number in which they do cut off how many games that you can start to be eligible for sixth man of the year. But I think if you're looking at the award right now, it's between him and Peyton Pritchard personally. And I think if the Pistons win more games, I think Malik's name will be brought up on a more national level for sixth man of the year. Right now, it's kind of like, how media have their agendas with awards on it. It feels like Peyton Pritchard has kind of been in that conversation in terms of just winning sixth man of the year, right? We have a comment from Paper Chung's talking about, Devin Booker, need to keep Ivy. Book is aging fast and soft. We need a legit power forward. See, that's why I love having these open forums and open discussions. I like Booker as a player, but I worry the asking price and how much you would have to give up. Like if you believe Jaden Ivey has another step of development, there's more there, which I happen to believe. Be a little bit patient with Jaden Ivey. We saw this season he's had game winners. He was one of the Pistons' most clutch players in the fourth quarter. Him and Cade Cunningham have had game winners this season. If you feel like this backcourt of Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey is something that they should build around, be more patient with, then I could understand that argument and that standpoint. But you're right. Like Devin Booker is getting older, doesn't like to be doubled. If you guys remember that open run in the summer, he's like, why are we doubling and open gym runs? But I think Devin Booker has always just kind of had that connection with Pistons fans because he's from Grand Rapids, because he always supports Detroit sports teams. And I get it. You like those hometown guys. Like I've seen some people say they would love Draymond Green towards the end of his career just because he brings mental toughness and he would really give an edge. to the Detroit Pistons. But like I get it at the end of the day. I do want to get into low high, and we'll let him have the last comment of this post game podcast because we're almost at an hour. And uh, he wants to know, can we talk about the unnecessary Ivy hate as of late? Now, I woke up this morning and I see Jim Costa. I'm sure a lot of you guys know who Jim Costa is, 97.1 The Ticket, really good radio host, right? And a listener of theirs made the argument, is Ivy the second best player in a championship team? And here's my issue with that question. You won 14 games last year, okay? You're much improved. You have 35 wins right now. Be patient. Like why can't you go from you're the worst team in the league? Why can't you go to an improved team in the league and keep building on it? Why does it always have to be like worst to first? Why can't you just build your way up to get to first? I think that's where the hate's coming from. I think people are like, Jaden Ivey can't be a number 2 on a championship team. Like, what are we doing? Fans are impatient, and I get it. Like, you haven't won a championship since '04, but like, I think the Ivy hate this stems from 97.1 listeners not thinking that Jaden Ivey can be a number 2 on a winning basketball team. Excuse me, or a championship basketball team. And I don't think Ivy's done developing personally. He was the number 2 option on this team. He was averaging over 17 points a game, shooting 40% from 3. He was starting to figure it out. Him and Cade were playing well off each other, and they were building chemistry, and the team was doing well. I think the Ivy hate is just from fans that do listen to 97.1, or maybe just fans on Twitter, having this discourse of Jaden Ivey can't be a number 2 on a championship team. I think it's ridiculous. I really do. Like, I think there has to be a middle ground, and we can have conversations about this team without saying, okay, they're not contenders. This is a waste of season. This is a waste of a season. When you won 14 games last year, like, what are we doing? We should be up here talking about how this team is much improved, how they're fun, they're young, they're learning how to win basketball games. The defense is stepping up. Like, I really don't understand it. Like, I think sometimes radio discourse, and like, I don't blame Jim for this whatsoever. Right? I just want to say that Jim was just, following up with what a listener had said to him on the air this morning. And I'm sure, he knows that. But, to, put this out there on social media, on Twitter today, it's messy. It's really messy because, like, Jaden Ivey's not even 25 yet. He's developed quite a bit since the Pistons drafted him from a few years ago. And I think when you look at a backcourt of Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, both of them have developed tremendously since the Pistons drafted both of those guys. And I think that's going to be your backcourt of the future. I really do. I think Ivey gets a contract extension this summer as well. But yeah, the unnecessary Ivy hate as of late, I think, has more to do with the radio shows talking about this team in ways that they haven't talked about them probably since the Going to Work Pistons. Because if we're being honest, this city has been starving for a good basketball team for a very, very long time. And what happens a lot of times is they're looking at players on this roster and say, nope, he can't be a number 2. Nope, can't win with that guy. Like, I just saw JB Bickerstaff saying that Jalen Duren has been dominant as of late. And I saw someone that said dominant. He's barely playing good. Like, the casual NBA fans that haven't been, like, Pistons fans, I should say, casual Pistons fans that haven't been paying attention to the, Jalen Duren over the last month, 2 months, they're not watching these games like we are. Like, I view a lot of you guys that come in, watch these podcasts 3 to 5 times a week. You're diehard fans. You're locked in for a full 48. You're watching the Pistons 3 to 4 times a week. You consume a lot of Pistons basketball, and I think a lot of the casuals, they just don't view these young core guys as, blue chip pieces you can build around to win a championship. And I think you have to at least make the playoffs, get your toes a little bit wet before we have, can Jaden Ivey be a number 2 on a championship team, right? Like, let these guys just make the playoffs, see how they do against the top tier teams in the Eastern Conference, like the New Yorks, like the Indianas, like the Clevelands and the Bostons. See where you measure up with those top tier teams. See what you need to add. Coming up on, social media, on Twitter, having conversations saying, I don't think that Jaden Ivey can be a number 2 option on a championship team. Like, let these guys just find out what they need to improve on, what they need to add in the offseason. What's the holes on this roster? I think the discourse on Twitter and listening on radio shows sometimes when I'm listening back, or I see a clip that just goes viral for no reason because it's negative and they're just spewing out negativity. I think you have to be very careful of how you consume your basketball, especially on, podcast form like this, or, these are live podcasts as well. But I think it just really depends where you get your basketball from. But I'm under the belief that let these young guys grow together. Why do we have to go from worst to a championship contender? I don't get it. I don't understand it. I honestly think that just let Jaden Ivey keep developing. Let Cade Cunningham keep developing. Let JB have, a few years with these guys. Like, look at the turnaround that he's done with Jalen Duren. Like, Jalen Duren is playing like a monster right now. He's arguably the second or third best player on a night-to-night basis with Cade Cunningham and Asar out there. Like, I think my message to the fans, let this young team develop and keep growing. But that's just my take on it, Low High. I saw it today too. I don't understand the hate. It's weird. It's really weird. But I do want to wrap up this podcast. We've been on for the last 50 minutes. I think I've never done a post-game podcast for over an hour. But I appreciate and love all you guys that are watching right now at 1 a.m. But I am going to wrap this podcast up. So if you guys could do me a favor on the way out, hit that like button. It does really help out the YouTube channel, helps us grow and push out Detroit Pistons content to fans like you that are watching right now. We got over almost 100 of you in here right now, 97 to be exact. And if you're an audio listener, do us a favor. Leave us a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcast. We're everywhere. Apple, Spotify, iHeart. Like, we're on every audio platform. But I do appreciate all you guys. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my birthday. And I'll see you guys on Wednesday when the Pistons play the LA Clippers. And I'm looking at the game time for that game. It looks like they start really, really late. Let's see, 10:30. Oh, screw me, man, right? That's going to be a late one. So it's probably going to be on the 6th, probably like at 12:30, 1 in the morning, probably like 1 or 2 in the morning, because 10:30 games should be illegal. I know it's on the West Coast, but holy crap. I just realized how late I'm probably going to be staying up with you guys, but I love it. I love the grind. But again, appreciate all you guys that are stayed up late for this podcast. But until next time, you guys, take care. Go Pistons. Peace.